apologize to the audience, but Republicans only need those laws for themselves.
And look, if you're a Republican, look, we love you too, but this is just a conversation of it. And I do run into living in this area where you run into the uber conservative stuff again and again. That's why when I walk in, and I did talk to the CBD guy, and I told him how I'd had back surgery. I still get some real sharp pains. Nice enough guy that goes, hey, you know what? Here's half of a thing for free. Just buy it from me next time. And I'll be damned. I did use it. That shit works.
Well, works really well. I have several customers that swear by it. I was shocked. For all sorts of things, from anxiety to general pain, things like that.
You can give it to even on their sheet. It talks about the dogs in small doses, because I have
we talked about that with Nala.
Well,
right?
Nala was having some. She'll sit there and one of her legs will start quivering because she has like a bulging disc in her neck.
And Jake is so big that his joints are starting. You can just see him slowly getting out. That we've considered it. I don't want to shove something in my dog's mouth that's going to hurt him.
Well,
but
I mean, think of this:
if it helps him, that's wonderful.
Our brains actually have THC receptors in them, so our bodies are built to take that chemical and put it into our system to have a result. We are built to use it. We're supposed to use it.
Damn it!
We have our advocate over here.
I mean,
there's the campaign for somebody. It's Sean Jackson. We're built to use it.
And when we talk about Republicans and Democrats, I don't think anybody here claims to be a Democrat more than we claim to be liberal. I don't think we're because I think all of us would agree if there was a Republican that we agreed with,
absolutely,
we would vote for them. It's just that there are no Republicans currently running that
in our area
that I could put my support behind.
We also have to think about the fact that I will typically tend to vote Democrat because of being gay, and there is a lot that is said for voting blocks of parties and where they shift.
True.
And so while I may find a really good Republican candidate that I've voted for some in the past, sometimes I have to look at
what they're also supporting,
or who they would vote with on bigger issues that could negatively affect me as well. Well, that's why people stick to the parties,
right?
Because it may not be a specific issue that they're totally for. They just recognize they're going to vote by a party in one place. I'd love to see more back and forth between the two parties
I would too.
In terms of voting.
And I think that's one thing we're missing in this country is that now it's just become ideologies on each side, and we're not talking about the middle. I look back to the good shared friend that Sean and I have is gay, and that when we first started being friends with him, he was a Republican, and so was Sean at that time. Was very Republican. Yep. And I was raised by what's called a yellow dog Democrat, very old type saying where they would piss on, they would take a dog that was piss yellow, and if that was what they had to vote for, that's what they'd vote for as long as it's a Democrat. My dad is all about, give everybody their fair shake, don't treat anybody, blah, blah, blah. Now, my dad's to the point of there's no such good thing as a Republican. I think back to the conversations with our friend, and he said, well, yes, I'm a Republican, but they have the log cabin element where they're defending rights. And what I said to him, I said, okay, so in your party, you have to designate a little group. In my party, it's just you're there.
It's just, here's our black Republican, and so that means we're inclusive because we have one.
It's so I went to SMU and I started the gay and lesbian organization with 6 other individuals in 1989. It was a restart of an organization that existed just a few years earlier, then got shut down by the chancellor. But when I was with those 7 people, the biggest changes that I was able to make were with groups and individuals that I was already a part of. So while I admire the idea
of change from within,
while I admire the log cabin Republicans,
I do too,
because they're sticking with this party.
They have a belief here, and they think I can change,
and they may be able to move the wheels a little bit further down the line for the party themselves.
But do you think that the party is changing them, or they're changing the party?
Well, that's what I don't know. When I look at what I individually want to vote for, I cannot vote for a party by and large votes against my rights.
You're absolutely right.
So I admire them for what they're doing because I recognize that works. It is not something that I can do personally anymore.
So that makes me think of something that occurred to me this week. And I'm not going to name the name of the town, but it's where my wife is from, and I grew up in the small town right next to it. So very small town America. Each of the towns is roughly 25,000 or below, which is the bigger side of small town America, but it's still, trust me.
Those are the red parts of Texas.
Very. You grow up with the people, and you may graduate with 300 people. You know everybody in it. Abby's class here in the town we're in, they only have one high school here, and Abby will graduate with thousands of kids.
That's what I graduated with.
Yeah, and so it really, if you go over to the school here, it's like a little mini college, and our kid is getting acclimated to it so that when she steps on a college, it won't be quite as terrifying.
Yeah.
It's a very cool approach.
The only difference is you won't be right around the corner.
That's exactly it. But we go up this weekend because my niece was nominated for the homecoming court. She did not get selected to the next level. She's an absolutely beautiful young lady, and she even pulled me aside and said, I really didn't want to go to the next level. It's been fun to be part of this. But here was the really encouraging thing. When I grew up in those small towns to me were constraints of conservatism I had to get away from. It's why I love Springsteen. You know, you listen to him, it's about, I got to get out of here. That was me. Part of the reason I had to get out of there was that, you know, somebody that eventually became my best friend who was gay started off, he was so angry that he couldn't come out that the way I met him, he called me derogatory gay names. And then I found out who he was. So that's what that small town is. I want you to understand now how shocking it was as I sat there and listened to the ceremony as we're in the nominees for King, and suddenly a young lady walks out, and they're the nominee by the, and forgive me, I don't remember what the anagram was or what it was, but it was all about transgender, blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. And it was a young lady. And then it was a young man on the other side that they went intentionally against gender type for the nomination. That's massive for a place like where I grew up. Now, I can't say that the people in the audience weren't saying ugly things in their mind, but people applauded. That is a huge step forward no matter what we've done is at least monumental.
So we've still had a lot of black trans women murdered this year. So there is,
and that's in Dallas.
I don't want to give the impression
near our neighborhood.
I don't want to give the impression to the audience that there is not a lot more progress that needs to be made.
Absolutely.
In the same way that women are still fighting for equal pay, in the same way that we still have racism.
Absolutely.
Even if it's something very, very subtle.
Just because it's better doesn't mean it. Just because it's good doesn't mean it.
But in terms of LGBT things, we're moving a lot more where it's accepted. We see the same thing with things like marijuana, stuff like that, where it's just kind of moving. Society is moving forward on climate change. The kids are moving. The kids.
Well, you see the actions that have occurred this week with a lot of young people going out and saying, "Excuse me, you're going to die of old age. I'm going to die of climate issues."
Yeah. Oh, you know, I love the fact that everybody's so concerned about getting rid of vapes and all that kind of stuff whenever, but we'll keep cigarettes out there. So, you know,
well, and I think
got to get them old enough to die.
I think to your point, so I'm encouraged when I can go home and I can see, oh my God, these people who, the way I looked at it, no one I knew could come out as gay when I was a kid, have now accepted the point where we can almost celebrate it. However, that becomes... What distresses me is then you see conservative leaders going, yes, but we're making strides. Look at the children who can be accepted here. And it's a mask over the true issue that they use that we need further.
Yes.
This is my favorite joke of this week. Hey, Sean, is your refrigerator running?
Yes.
Well, then I'm going to vote for it in 2020.
Yeah, we try not to get political here, even though the Apes movies inherently are rather political.
They are. It'd be fascinating to poll to find out from our the fans of the podcast and of the show how they lean on these issues. It'd be kind of interesting. I don't want to get too hyper political, but I'm just curious, like what our demographic is. I mean, is it us? Is it people like us? Is it people that just freaking love Charlton Heston and that kind of machismo?
And I think you're going to find those. And I think that, you know, look, when I say that, also I want to be fair to the conservatives. When a conservative takes an issue like homosexuality and says, yes, but I went to this thing and these kids were celebrating this and I was okay with it. We're not saying you're an evil person for that. Because we probably, as people that lean the other side, probably do a little generalization occasionally too, that we're... I think as humanity, we're always kind of going, hey, you know, I accepted that. Well, yeah, but you needed to be over here. That's where we need to go. So, but that's the plight of humanity, is to get to the middle, and that's kind of what the plight of these films that we talk about on a daily basis is, to start the conversation we're having now.
These films really talked about a lot of radical issues at the time, pushing
very,
and I think that's kind of the nature of what sci-fi does as well. Is push these new concepts and ideas, challenging populations on things issues that sci-fi wants you to move forward and leap forward. I mean, that's basically what Twilight Zone was about, right? It was a political
morality play.
Yeah, exactly. More than it was about sci-fi. They just used that as the platform to talk about these things.
And you look at Handmaid's Tale, which really takes a very small of sci-fi. Just twist the reality just enough that there were problems with breeding and whatnot, and this enslavement of women occurred, and it allows to talk about issues about women's equality. That's the best sci-fi in the world. Does a tiny twist and allows us to go, I see it now.
Well, and that we had this, I guess, with this last week when Cornelius was talking about the death of the pets. Death of the pets led to the rise of
new pets,
apes as new pets, and that led to this kind of continual movement.
Slavery.
It was something really, really simple, something really, really simple that you could see how this transition would kind of begin. I mean, they're broad transitions, but you could see how this would kind of move through.
And doing those kind of little transitions in some ways can be a very, like we were just saying, a generalization of the conversation, but at least it allows the conversation to transcend to another place.
Yep.
Wow, we just did political talk on in between. So we hope you're still with us and we haven't pissed you off. Again, none of this is meant to piss anybody off because, look, boy, I was about to say, look, I've got a lot of Republican friends that I have these conversations with, but
You've got a black friend.
But I'm not going to do that anymore.
I've got a gay friend.
I did it. I thought, oh my God, I've got a gay friend. I got a black friend.
I've got a Republican friend.
But look, I like these conversations, and I wish, in some ways, we had another person on here that was on the conservative side that you can show that there can be civility in conversation. It doesn't have to be nastiness. It doesn't have to get to that.
Well, Meghan McCain walked off the View today, so maybe we can pull her to come on a Minute of the Apes.
No, I
about to
veto her.
I'm about to say, can we keep her off?
I'm sorry. There's one person that she's one of the one persons. Many? Yes. Anyway, anybody got anything else?
No, that's it.
All right, everybody have a great weekend. We'll be back next week. More Minute of the Apes coming your way.
Next week starts to get into some good stuff in terms of where we move. I mean, we just got out a window. What happens next?
Yeah. I mean, seriously, I think the movie. We talk about plot twists. We're definitely in that final one. Yeah. All right, everybody, have a great one. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye,
everybody.